Welcome to the Fast and the Furious, the only movie that anybody really remembers from that series. I can't believe they already made 11 movies in that franchise and are planning on making at least one more. They are milking it more than Rockstar is milking GTA 5, but the first movie is actually still about racing and car tuning. The movie starts at the shipyard where they put something valuable in a container on the truck. We see the truck driving away, and then we cut to a night scene where the same truck gets attacked and surrounded by 3 cars that hijack it. You can't really see who they are before they cut away. We get a pretty cool transition to the next day where we meet this guy. They don't introduce him, but that's Brian. He's just sitting in his car practicing drag starts, trying to be as cool as the other guys, but his car isn't fast enough. He drives to a car shop where you can also eat. I don't know what kind of business this is, but it seems pretty strange, or maybe a new business idea. Anyway, he eats a tuna sandwich there because he wants to impress the girl there, who we later learn is Dom's sister. The crew comes back with their tuned cars, and they apparently don't like that Brian is eating there. One guy just attacks him as Brian leaves. Dom steps in, kicks him out, and says he's fired from his new job. I don't really understand why, because he didn't do anything. Basically just defend himself, but I don't care. Brian goes back to his boss, who didn't fire him, but Brian says he needs to tune his car even more and needs some of those fancy gas tanks. Later we see him driving to car meet where Brian is waiting for Dom, but he just stands there because he has never visited one of those and looks lost, like the Pulp Fiction scene. A guy named Hector comes over and introduces him to everybody. And there's also the other dude who tries to intimidate him by saying that he needs to know how to use the car and not just what's inside. When Dom and his crew finally arrive, they announce that there's only one race today. Brian steps in, but because he's broke, he bets his car to compete. If he wins, he gets the respect of Dom and the others, but if he loses, he has nothing, no car, no respect, no balls, no bitches. Seems stupid, but respect is more important to some people. Dom accepts his stupid idea and lets him buy himself into the race with his car. The car meet starts moving and they block the road where they're going to race. The 4 people who are racing go to the start line and wait for something illegal to happen so they can start the race. We got Dom in the back, then the Chinese guy, and then the third guy is the black dude who intimidated Brian. When the illegal act happens, they start the race and off they go. The speed they drive is obviously exaggerated, but they are fast, but it doesn't look like that if you're driving that fast. Also, you're telling me that the distance they drove was only 300 meters or 0.2 miles for my American people, and they needed 2.5 minutes for that at that speed? I don't know, movie, it's not looking good for you. Anyway, Brian has a bad start because he can't control his car, and then in the race, he almost blows up his whole car because he doesn't know what he's doing. He loses control of his car and spins. He destroys some part of his motor and the car starts smoking. But he eventually makes it to the finish line and now he just lost his car. Before Dom could claim his new car, the police shows up and they all have to flee because nobody wants to get arrested, obviously. Dom hides his car in some parking garage, where it is the only car in the whole building, apparently. The cop sees him walking away from it and does a U-turn, telling him by his name to stand still. So you're telling me that he could exactly identify who was walking on the street at night without light, driving at that speed? I don't know about you, but I can't do that. The police officer is just built different, I guess. Brian finds him and almost runs him over, picks him up and hangs off the police. But he drives into the territory of one of Dom's rivals, who used to be a business partner but has a problem with him. They surround his car with motorcycles, show him their weapons and tell him to follow them. They drive to Chinatown, or at least some Chinese looking area, which later turns out to be their hideout. And they talk about his nice car and how they're going to meet in the desert in a month. They drive away but come back a second later to blow up his car because, yeah, why not? They're rebels anyway, so why not? They say they have to walk home, but actually they just get a taxi, and during the ride they apparently talk about nothing because everything they could talk about is very important and story related, so we need to hear it anyway. There's a party at Dom's house and he invites Brian to come inside. Dom's sister sees Brian and changes into some new clothes just for him because she likes him too. I mean, who could withstand such a sexy face anyway? They go inside, there are a lot of women in short clothing, but we must stay focused, boys. Dom shouts at his mates for not saving him, and they just make excuses why they didn't go and find him. But he tells them that Brian saved him, not getting caught by the police. Brian goes upstairs first because he really has to poop, or he just wanted to check out the place, I don't know. Dom goes upstairs with his girlfriend to give her a massage, but tells Brian before that he owns him a 10-second car. And I just want to say, I don't know how many bedrooms this house has, because if before, he told one of his mates to go upstairs, and we saw that his sister has her own room. So they all do the sexy where? Dom's sister comes to save Brian as he was about to get attacked by the 3 dudes who are with Dom but didn't save him. Brian gets her a drink but just lets his beer stand there half empty. That's rude. She changed into different clothes, but I don't know about you, but aren't those the same clothes she wore while they did the race? They look the same to me. She tells Brian that he needs to sleep and needs a shower, and she takes him home, whatever that means. We cut to him driving his work car and getting stopped by the police and getting arrested for no apparent reason. But then plot twist. He did not really get arrested, he's an undercover detective agent. They investigate the case we saw at the beginning of the movie, where some people hijacked the truck and they obviously want to know who it was, but he's like, I don't know man, just give me more time. He talks to Detective Dipshit over here and tells him that he needs a new car. So he gets a burnt car, specifically a Supra, in which the engine is still intact, but everything else is just garbage. And now he just works for or at Dom's place, as well as the other job. They drive to the car shop and get all the parts needed for the new car. They want to fully restore the Supra. They have a barbecue, but the one guy still doesn't trust him and doesn't join the barbecue at first, but comes over anyway, maybe because he's hungry and has no other place to eat. Brian talks to Dom's sister about going out or something, and the guy who doesn't like Brian at first just wants to make popcorn, but she teases him. He wanted to go out with her too, and she asks him which restaurant he wanted to go to. He tells her, but she turns around to tell Brian that she wants to go there. Later we see Brian at his shop, where Hector orders a lot of parts for the cars that seem suspicious for the crime on the truck. At night we see him driving to Hector's garage, breaking in to check out the cars he ordered parts for. He quickly identifies them as the wrong cars because the tires are incorrect, and he could have just changed them. I mean, it's not that hard. Some of the guy who thinks Brian is sus catch him breaking in and punch him, making him unconscious for a moment. They ask him questions about why he did it and if he's a cop, which he denies. He comes up with an excuse that doesn't make sense at all. Something about checking out the other races for the desert race. I don't know man. But Dom believes it and they break into the Chinese guy's garage to check out their cars. There they see how the Chinese people have kidnapped Brian's boss and are asking where their engines are. At first he tries to not cooperate, but they pump oil in his mouth so he can't refuse anymore. We cut to Brian with the police and they tell him that they need the results now, but he needs a few more days and just leaves. They are in the garage working on the motor of his new car and Dom wants to show him something. He shows him his big PP car in the garage that apparently his father built. They provide some backstory about how his father died, you can see in one of the later movies. I don't remember which one it was because there are so many movies man. Then we see the date between the sister and Brian and later some sexy time between them. Another truck gets attacked at night and Brian gets a call about the Chinese, but tells Mia it's just the wrong number somebody dialed. The next day the Chinese get swatted by the police, but it turns out they're innocent except for a few parking tickets and that all the video players they saw were legally purchased. They finish his car and go for a test drive to smoke a Ferrari. Dom knows something is off. But Brian plays it off pretty awful, telling Dom that he wants to join his suspicious activities because obviously he can't afford all that just selling sandwiches and winning races. So he has to join some race event in the desert they all teased about for the last 30 minutes of the movie. We see some races, some important, some less important. But the Chinese guy wins an important race against one of Dom's cars and wins one of Dom's cars. But the guy driving it drives away because he doesn't want to lose it. The Chinese guy approaches Dom, telling him that he got spotted and accuses Dom of snitching. They fight and we cut to later that day where Dom and the crew are driving away to do something suspicious. Brian sees it and follows Mia and convinces her to tell him what they do because Brian tells her he's a cop. They follow them, she has no clue where they're off to, just a vague hint. He tracks his phone using the police powers and Mia's cooperation. Meanwhile, they attack the truck, but Brian said the truckers fight back, so Dom sees that the driver has a shotgun and tells the guy not to jump, but he jumps anyway, because he didn't hear it, I guess. By the way, how does Dom actually see that the driver has a shotgun? I don't know about you, but usually if you're that close to a truck, you cannot see shit. The guy who jumps gets caught in some wires from the conspiracy shot and hangs off the side of the truck. The trucker destroys 2 cars. The first one being the one with Dom's girlfriend inside, which he pushed off the road. Dom tells the guy in the third car to turn around and save her from the crash she just had. And the other car is Dom's, which the driver shot at the engine once and he destroyed the tire. Dom has to stop and just in time, Brian and Mia arrive. He obviously saved the guy because he's the protagonist, but he almost got shot in the process. However, the truck driver is just a bad noob and misses almost every shot. They drive to the side of the road to avoid getting crushed by the truck. While he saves the other guy from dying, he uses his police power to save his life. But Dom doesn't like that at all and drives home without him. Brian goes to Dom's house where Dom was basically waiting for him, but he actually wanted to find the kid who drove away with one of the cars at the desert race. So right as they talk about him, he shows up. So he has been driving for almost 24 hours, or did he hide somewhere? It's not explained, but it still seems strange. The Chinese come over and shoot the whole place down, and they kill the kid because he's not important for the later story, I guess. Brian and Dom follow them to kill them or whatever. They push both guys off the motorcycles and one guy dies, but the other one lives. Doesn't that just mean the one who lives wants to get revenge one day? Brian follows Dom and they have a last race. They both race poorly, but make it just in time before the train almost kills them. So the obvious question is, why did they jump? Or what made them jump in the first place? It wasn't a railroad crossing, I guess just style points. Dom crashes the car his father built and he wasn't looking straight. Kids always look at the road while driving. He survives it. And the movie ends with Brian giving Dom his car so he can escape from the police. This movie gets 2 luck nuts out of 8 motors.